What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're talking about the three and only three things that you can do with money. Yep, that's right. Of all things that you can do with money, they all fall into one of three categories. You can spend it, you can save it, or you can invest it. Now, there's a really trite little phrase that you might have heard people say before, which is the poor spend, the middle class saves, and the wealthy invest. And in my experience, this is generally true. Not always, but I think it's important to understand why it's true. So let's unpack why it's true first, and then let's talk a little bit about how we can kind of ascend through these classifications, move from a spender to a saver to an investor. Because that's ideally, if you want to win the money game, that's where you got to get to, right? So the reason the poor spend is, one, they don't make enough money. And so every dollar that's coming in is just going right back out. So if you're, and I used to live this life. I was making like $35,000. In a lot of cases, I was making way less than this, but we'll rewind to like a decade ago. I was making like $35,000, $40,000 a year while living in San Francisco. So that's not a lot of money given the cost of living there. And for every dollar that was coming in, I had like $1,500 to $1,600 of living expenses, food and everything. And so by the end of it all, I didn't have any money that I could save. I couldn't put it away. I couldn't invest it, right? And this is the position that the poor find themselves in. It's like this death spiral. Every dollar coming in is going right back out. And it's hard because you hear people say you got to live below your means, but the problem is when you're not making like any meaningful money, your means are pretty much nothing. So the first thing that you got to focus on is, getting out of that place by increasing your earning potential, which is, long story short for this entire podcast, that's going to be the answer throughout, is like increasing your earning potential. But first, let's go back to understand now why the middle class starts to save. And the reason was, if you look at historically over the last 80, 90 years, like our parents, what worked for them and our grandparents was to take money to put it away and save it. And then, they could buy that house, and then that became its own kind of forced savings account. And inflation wasn't too crazy, and you could still get some good yield on your savings account and in your bonds. And so saving was a strategy for success in a lot of cases. The problem is that doesn't work so well anymore in a high inflationary environment and just the world as it is today. And like, if you want to become wealthy, it's very hard to save your way to wealth. It's very, very hard. And we've talked about this before in previous episodes, that wealth is the ratio between what you make and what you keep. And the two ways then to increase that ratio is by increasing your income or decreasing your expenses. And one side of that equation, the income, is potentially limitless. You could earn $1 billion next year. Whereas you can only cut your expenses so far. You could only go to zero, right? And that's not even realistic. You're going to have some expenses. Some money is going to be going out. And so when we're focusing on that wealth equation of how do we increase this, it's typically better to focus on the income side. Yes, we also want to focus on the expenses and the money going out, because lifestyle creep is very, very real. And if your expenses are growing in proportion to how much you're earning, then though you are making more money, you are no wealthier, because again, it's a ratio between what you make and what you keep. And so the middle class gets into this saving mindset. They put the money into their savings account or into their checking account or just underneath their mattress, because they think they can save their way to retirement, and not realizing that this is a very ineffective way of getting there and unlikely to succeed, because inflation and currency devaluation every year is eating into your money. And so if you're putting your money into a bank where it's earning 2 or 3% yield per year, but inflation is 4 or 5, 6%, then you're technically losing value. You're losing money by saving. And yet this is what we were taught in a lot of cases, to sock money away to save it. Or maybe it's not what we were taught. Maybe we were told that we should invest, but the problem with investing is that it's so big and scary and overwhelming, and there's so many different ways that you could do it. And it feels like maybe just putting my money into a savings account is safer because I don't know what I'm doing and I don't want to risk losing it. Whereas if you put it in a savings account, you are losing it. It's just invisible. You can't see the fact that your money is losing value. But the wealthy have figured out that to become wealthy, to maintain wealth, that you need to invest your money and have your money thinking about your money as though it is a worker. And for every dollar you have, that worker's job, that dollar's job is to go out into the world and bring back another worker, to bring back another dollar. And then that dollar brings back another dollar. And you keep doing this because your money can scale in a way that you cannot. right? You can have your money working for you while you sleep around the clock. It's constantly going out there and tilling the field and bringing more workers to you. And that's what the wealthy have figured out how to do, how to put their money to work so it's working harder for them than they worked for it. And if you want to win the wealth game, then you got to get to that place. But back to the beginning of this episode, the problem is the question that I get so frequently from people is like, what should I invest in? Should I invest in crypto, stocks, bonds, real estate, Forex? Like, where am I going to get the biggest return? And the thing that I see people get so wrong about this is that they're investing inconsequential amounts of money, thinking that they buy into the thing that they hear everybody saying, which is if you start investing early and you do it over 40 to 50 years, and by the time you retire, you're going to have a couple $1 million sitting there. And this is all technically true, but the problem with this is it's delaying the outcome till very far down the road. And if you're like me, you don't want to wait 40 years to retire, to live off this money, to live the life of your dreams and do what you want, when you want, with who you want, where you want to do it. And so your goal isn't just to like retire comfortably someday, 40, 50 years down the road. You kind of want to get to that place so that you can start enjoying your life right now. And if that's the case, then you can't spend your way there. You can't save your way there. You can invest your way there, but you have to invest in a very particular vehicle. You've heard me talk about this over and over again. The most important investment that you can make is in yourself, in your skills, in your resources, your network, because these things pay compounding dividends for the entirety of your life. So if you can level up your skills, you can increase your earning capacity, you can increase your wealth by focusing on that number that has infinite potential. So if you're making $50,000 a year, instead of cutting your expenses down to the bare bones, focus on doubling your income to 100,000 and then to 200, and then to $500,000, then to $1 million. And that's where true wealth is really created. And so that's the investment that I want you to be thinking about. It's not in stocks and bonds and 401ks. And yes, those things are all great and you should learn it. And I'm not saying don't put your money into those things, but you should be putting an equivalent, if not more amount of money into your earning potential. And until you've got to the point where you've maxed that out and you've reached to a level in your life where you're like, I love what I do, I love the amount that I earn, now it's time to start focusing on the investments and getting our money to work for us as effectively as possible. So like if you're a teacher and you're making $60,000 a year and you're psyched on that, and that's what you want to do with your life, cool. Don't focus on earning more. Now we need to focus on winning the investing game so that in 40, 45 years, you're well positioned to retire. But if that's not you, if you're not doing a job that you love and you're not content just making $60,000, again, nothing wrong with that. But if you're not content with that, then you need to focus on investing into yourself to increase your earning potential so that you have more capital, more money to work with when it comes to investing. Because listen, like compounding interest is a weird thing. It takes a really long time for it to start working in your favor in a meaningful way. It's going to look like not much is really happening for a long period of time. So you need to get time on your side, but you need to have a large sum of money really working for you. In my experience, that's the easiest, best way to get to financial security. So those are, in my experience, and I'm open to being wrong, but those in my experience are the three things that you can do with money. You can spend it, you can save it, you can invest it. And the thing that most people are getting wrong when they're trying to make the jump from middle to upper or wealthy or well off to wealthy, true wealth, is they're trying to invest their way there. And that's a really, really hard route. It's a really hard route if you're not maxing out your earning potential. So I hope this brought you a little bit of value. If it did, if you're curious, how do I max out my earning potential? I did an article on this a while back called How to Actually Become a Millionaire on a Low Salary. And I walk through an example of how you could go from making, $30,000 a year to becoming a millionaire in under 5 years or some crazy number like that. There's a YouTube video on the channel you can go check out called How to Actually Become a Millionaire on a Low Salary. Or you can go to anthonyvicino.com/low-salary. There's an article that I wrote on the topic there. It'll walk you through exactly the step-by-step process that you can deploy to go out there and win the money game. So hope this brought you guys some value. As always, I appreciate you being here. Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you back here again tomorrow. But until then, stay hyper-focused, my friend.